across 1,000 worlds. His name is a plague, a curse, the last word in the history of a dozen species. We were told he was a demon, a roaring engine of destruction who left only scorched planets in his wake. In the data hives of the Cathar Dominion, his official designation is Cataclysm Agent S. But the refugees, the ones who fled the shattered remnants of the Signian Confederacy, the ones with the 1,000-yard stares and trembling hands, they didn't use a designation. They called him Silas the Ender. They spoke his name in hushed, broken tones, as if saying it too loud might summon him from the void. They said he commanded fleets of ghost ships that phased through reality, that he could turn suns into weapons, that his gaze alone could shatter the will of an entire world. The legends were operatic in their terror, painting a picture of a demigod of wrath. So when the door to the diplomatic chamber slid open, I braced myself. My scales tightened, a defensive reflex honed over centuries of Cathar supremacy. My mind prepared for the psychic onslaught of a being steeped in cosmic violence. I was ready to meet the monster responsible for the silence of entire star systems. The door hissed shut. Behind a man of average height, he wore a simple, dark gray tunic that looked soft, almost comfortable. He had no visible augments, no weapons, no honor guards. His hair was starting to gray at the temples, and faint lines crinkled around his eyes as he offered a polite, unassuming smile. He held a small, steaming cup in one hand. "Ambassador Lyra," he said, his voice quiet, gentle. "I'm so glad you could make it. Welcome. Can I get you anything? The synth tea is actually quite pleasant today." My mind just stalled. This was it. This was Silas the Ender, the devourer of worlds. He looked less like a galactic horror and more like a mid-level administrator who'd wandered into the wrong room. There wasn't any aura of menace, no simmering rage, no hint of the apocalyptic power they all talked about. There was just a quiet calm, a placid stillness that was, in its own way, more disorienting than any open threat could have been. I stood rigidly in the middle of the Spartan room. It was furnished with just a simple table and 2 chairs. No banners of conquest, no trophies of war. The only decoration was a single, large viewport showing the silent, swirling expanse of the Perseus armor backdrop of serene, cosmic beauty that felt completely at odds with a man's reputation. "I require nothing," I managed, my voice harsher than I'd intended. "I am a daughter of the Cathar Dominion, an envoy of an empire that has ruled its corner of the galaxy for 10,000 years. We don't show weakness. We don't show confusion." "As you wish," Silas replied, taking a seat. He gestured to the other chair. "Please." I sat, my posture stiff, my senses on high alert. I was scanning for any trap, any hidden weapon, any flicker of the monster I knew had to be hiding behind that placid face. I found nothing. His biometrics, which my ocular implant discreetly scanned, were bafflingly normal. Heart rate slow and steady. Respiration, even. He was as relaxed as if he were about to discuss crop yields. "It was a long journey from the Dominion's core worlds," he said conversationally, taking a small sip from his cup. "I trust your passage was uneventful." "The might of the Cathar ensures our passages are always uneventful," I retorted, seizing the chance to assert our power. "Our fleets patrol our borders with unmatched vigilance. No pirate would dare impede an imperial vessel." "Of course," he nodded, that polite smile never wavering. "Your fleets are legendary, Ambassador, the pride of your empire." The casual way he agreed was infuriating. It felt like a parent placating a child. I was here to deliver an ultimatum, to represent the righteous fury of an empire. This wasn't a negotiation. It was a final warning. It was time he understood that. "Let's dispense with the pleasantries. Human," I began, my tone turning to ice. "I am here on behalf of the High Council. For too long, your species has encroached upon our territories. They ignored our edicts and disrupted the ancient order of this quadrant." I leaned forward, trying to channel the authority of my entire civilization into my voice. "Your expansion into the Cerulean Nebula is a direct violation of our declared sphere of influence. Your unsanctioned colonies on planets designated as Cathar protectorates are an insult. We have tolerated your species' infantile flailing through the galaxy because you were beneath our notice. You are no longer beneath our notice." I let the threat hang in the air. I told him about the strength of our forces. The 3rd and 5th glorious fleets are massed at the edge of the nebula. Over 500 capital ships, led by 10 Dominator-class dreadnoughts. Each dreadnought is a world breaker, capable of reducing a planet's surface to molten slag in a single cycle. Our warriors are born for conquest. Your people are scattered traders and farmers. I sat back, my point made. The weight of 10,000 years of military tradition was behind my words. I expected fear, anger, a desperate attempt to bargain. Silas just took another slow sip of his tea. He looked out the viewport at the distant stars for a long moment, as if admiring a painting. "The Dominator class," he mused, his voice still soft. "An impressive design, truly a testament to Cathar engineering. Must have taken centuries to perfect." Was he mocking me? Was this some strange human psychological game? "The Dominion does not rush perfection," I said stiffly. "No, of course not," he replied, turning his gaze back to me. The smile was still there, but it seemed thinner. You've presented your empire's position clearly, Ambassador. Now, if I may, I have a few questions, just to be sure I fully understand. I inclined my head, a gesture of condescending permission. Let the barbarian ask his questions. It would only highlight his ignorance before the inevitable. Your fleets are massed near the Cerulean Nebula, Silas began, setting his cup down with a faint click. Beautiful region. Have your navigators accounted for the recent increase in gravimetric shearing in Sector Gamma 9? It's right along the most efficient invasion route. I paused. Sector Gamma 9 was their primary route. Our navigators are the finest in the galaxy. They can compensate for any natural phenomena. I'm sure they are, he said smoothly. But would they know to look for shearing that isn't entirely natural? Shearing that's been encouraged, let's say, nudged into a more aggressive state over the last few years by strategically placed gravity projectors, disguised as common asteroids. My blood ran cold. Such a project would be immense, requiring a level of subtlety and long-term planning that was unthinkable, the work of ghosts. Before I could respond, he kept going, his voice an even unhurried rhythm. And your dreadnoughts, magnificent ships. I read the technical schematics that were quiet. Their shield generators are masterpieces, a dual-layer harmonic field that can repel almost any energy weapon. But tell me, Ambassador, has your High Command ever stress-tested those shield harmonics against a targeted, multi-spectrum cascade resonance frequency? The term was gibberish to me. A knot of dread began to form in my primary stomach. Our shields are invulnerable. Against conventional attacks, yes, Silas agreed. But a resonance cascade isn't an attack. Not really. It doesn't try to break the shield. It finds the precise frequency the shield operates on and sings along. It amplifies the shield's own harmonic, overloads it from within. It turns the shield's greatest strength into its most catastrophic failure. A fascinating principle of physics, don't you think? He wasn't looking at me anymore. He was staring at the table as if reading from an invisible script. And finally he said, his voice dropping another register, becoming almost a whisper itself, the Cathar homeworld, Cathar, so dependent on its great fungus weirs, a single food source that has fed your people for millennia, a marvel of agricultural stability. But stability, in biology, can also just be another word for fragility. Have your biologists ever considered the impact of a tailored retrovirus, one designed not to kill the fungus, but to alter its metabolic process to produce a potent, cumulative neurotoxin? I stopped breathing. The thought was so monstrous, so alien in its cruelty, that my mind couldn't grasp it. To attack not an army, but the very food that sustained a civilization. It was a level of barbarism the Cathar, for all our conquests, had never even conceived of. You're speaking of hypothetical atrocities, I hissed, my composure finally cracking. Fantasies. The Dominion isn't frightened by ghost stories. Human fantasies, he repeated softly. He finally lifted his head, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes. Not anger, not hatred, just a profound, chilling emptiness. The polite smile was gone, replaced by the serene neutrality of a god about to pass judgment. Ambassador Lyra, he said, and his voice was no longer that of a quiet administrator. It was the sound of a closing tomb. We are a young species. We learned fast. When we expanded into the galaxy, we encountered species like yours, ancient, powerful, and utterly convinced of their own superiority. We studied the ruins of those who came before us, and we learned. He steepled his fingers on the table. Our greatest strength isn't our ships or our weapons. It's our paranoia. It's our ability to see every possible threat and prepare for it. We don't believe in fair fights. We believe in fights that are over before the first shot is ever fired. Your threats are meaningless, I stammered, my voice trembling. My psionic senses were screaming now, not at an attack, but at the sheer monolithic wrongness of the man before me. The fleets are in position. The order will be given. Your species will be taught its place. Silas sighed, a faint, almost weary sound. Ambassador, you're still not understanding. This isn't a threat. It's an after-action report, delivered in advance. He leaned forward, and the quiet man was gone. In his place was the thing the galaxy whispered about. The Ender. 5 years ago, he began, his voice cold and precise as a scalpel. Human intelligence confirmed the Cathar Dominion's long-term plans for territorial purification, which included the eventual culling of humanity. We designated your empire an existential threat. 3 years ago, we began seeding your 12 primary naval shipyards with microscopic, self-replicating drones, hidden in shipments of common alloys. For the last 36 months, every single Dominator-class dreadnought, and every other capital ship built or refitted in those yards, has had a small, inert drone attached to its primary engine coolant regulator. My entire body felt like it was turning to ice. The cascade resonance frequency I mentioned, he continued without pause. It is not hypothetical. It's a broadcast signal. The moment our long-range sensors detect your fleets initiating a jump into the Cerulean Nebula, that signal will be transmitted. It will activate the drones. They won't explode. They will simply petrify the regulator valve, instantly blocking all coolant flow. Our models predict the core of a Dominator engine will reach critical meltdown in about 93 seconds. Your entire invasion force Youre's pride. Your glory will slag itself into a cloud of incandescent gas before it even clears the jump point. No human ship will even need to fire a weapon. I just stared, speechless. The scale of the infiltration, the sheer patient audacity, was impossible. The gravimetric shearing in Sector Gamma 9, he went on, his voice a relentless, dispassionate litany of doom. Those asteroid projectors are very real. Should any of your ships survive their own self-destruction, the invasion corridor will be narrowed into a single chaotic choke point. We won't have to destroy your ships. The universe will do it for us. It's far more energy efficient. He paused, letting the words sink in. The silence in the room was absolute, heavier than a dying star. And the retrovirus, he said, his voice softening again, which was somehow more terrifying than any shout. There is an unassuming freighter, the Stardust Drifter, currently on a standard trade route near Catharian space. It carries a cargo of agricultural machine parts, and one very small cryo-sealed vial. The pilot is a volunteer with a family he loves. He has a deadman's switch tied to his bio. If we don't send him a stand-down code every 12 hours, the vial's containment will fail. The freighter's ventilation system will disperse the agent. It will reach Catharia in 2 years. It won't be noticed. Then, slowly, over a generation, your food will begin to poison you. Your children will be born with complications. Your civilization will wither from the inside out. He leaned back, the picture of relaxation once more. That polite smile returned, and now I saw it for what it was. The serene, detached expression of an executioner who feels no malice, only a sense of a job done right. This meeting wasn't a negotiation, Ambassador, Silas stated quietly. It was a courtesy, a final mercy. Your empire's fate was sealed the moment your High Council decided we were a problem. We're simply giving you the choice of how your history books will record the end. Will it be a brief, silent military failure, or a slow, agonizing descent into famine, madness, and extinction? He picked up his teacup again. We'd prefer the former. It's cleaner. I just sat there, frozen in a state beyond terror. The Cathar Dominion, an empire that measured its life in millennia, had been defeated, not in a glorious battle of fire and steel, but in the quiet moments between moments. In shipping manifests, in asteroid fields, in the cold logic of a species that treated war not as a matter of glory, but as a math problem to be solved. An equation they had solved years before we even knew we were part of it. The monster wasn't a demon who roared. It was a quiet man who calculated. He didn't command ghost ships. He commanded logistics. He didn't turn suns into weapons. He turned an enemy's own strengths against them with chilling precision. The legends were wrong. They were all wrong. They were too small, too limited. The reality was so much worse. I looked at Silas. He was calmly keying something into a small datapad, his attention already elsewhere. He had just sentenced 10 trillion souls to death or subjugation, and he looked like he was balancing a budget. He hadn't threatened me. He had just read me the results. And in that moment, I finally understood. You don't scream the name of a hurricane. You don't shout in defiance at a plague. You don't roar at the tectonic plate shifting beneath your feet. You whisper the name of an absolute, unchangeable, and indifferent force of nature. It's the sound you make when you're standing on a cliff edge in the dark, and a quiet voice politely informs you that you've been falling for the last 5 years. His name wasn't a curse. It was a fact. It was the last sound you heard before the silence. The terror wasn't in what he was, but in the dawning realization of what he had already done. He was not a monster who might come for you in the night. He was the man who stood before you in the daylight and calmly explained that the night had already fallen, and you just hadn't noticed yet. Humanity's greatest weapon isn't a ship or a bomb. It's the quiet calculation that ends a war before it ever starts. It's the patience to plan for a decade to win a battle that lasts only 90 seconds. If you enjoy stories that explore the terrifying and brilliant potential of the human mind, be sure to subscribe for more tales from the edge of the galaxy. Let us know in the comments, what's the most terrifying human trait you can imagine from an alien perspective? Is it our anger or our quiet, methodical patience? Thanks for listening.